Monitors chirp as a metal tray skitters across tile and spins to a stop. And the doors crack open for Sergeant Cole Bennett, 32. U.S. Army. Shoulders braced, eyes wild. Blood darkens the right sleeve where a deep shoulder laceration leaks through gauze, and 2 grazing wounds stripe the left flank with raw heat. He twists off the gurney rail and scans for exits, while staff check their own footing, and security holds at the threshold with hands visible. A resident steps forward too fast, and the room tightens. Then RN Grace Walker moves into the space with slow, steady cadence, like a metronome that asks everyone to breathe. She keeps a safe 3-meter distance and holds his gaze at chest level so he does not feel hunted. Then gives him a simple anchor in plain words that carry weight from another life. Raven Echo 50. She adds that the phrase is not a live code and not a signal, only a unit motto used to ground a panicked soldier so care can begin. No one draws a weapon. No one shouts. The team poises for orders, while Grace mirrors his breathing and names the next safe step. And Cole shifts from resistance to watchful compliance, with his hands loose and his jaw unclenched. The phrase hangs in the air like a tuned string, and the room falls still. Everyone feeling a pass they cannot name yet. Grace Walker is 31 and chooses nights on purpose. She likes the steady hum, the quiet spaces between alarms, and the way hard cases come to the door when the city sleeps. She takes the patients others avoid. People without housing, people wrestling cravings that will not let go, and brittle minds that fray under the lights. Some senior physicians nod past her because she speaks softly and keeps her eyes on the work. The worst traffic pileup of the year poured into the bay and turned voices into static. Grace moved through it like she was walking a tight hallway, scanning faces and fabric for the one wrong detail. Behind a left ear she saw a thin, dark thread of blood, almost hidden by hair, and she asked for a microvascular set with a calm that cut through the noise. Working beside the attending, she helped expose and protect the carotid, let the surgeon take the lead, and stepped out before anyone could hand her the credit. Her habits say more than her words. In the lounge, she switches off a feed when the screen shows gunfire and broken streets, then rinses her mug and heads back to triage. When a heavy rotor thumps overhead, she slows her breath and relaxes her shoulders like a reflex learned long ago. She never explains, and no one asks twice. What stands out is a pattern that repeats. She follows the chain of command and keeps scope clean. Yet she moves first when seconds matter. She listens, then acts, then fades into the background so the team can shine. The patient comes first. The room calms, and the night goes on. A small special operations element ran into an ambush outside the city just after night fell. Sirens cut through traffic, and a civilian ambulance slid to the ER bay instead of a medevac. Sergeant Cole Bennett came in on a gurney with eyes locked wide and breath too fast. The room met him with practiced hands and clipped voices. His right shoulder carried a deep laceration with active oozing under soaked gauze. 2 grazing gunshot wounds tracked across the left flank without peritoneal penetration. Blood loss looked moderate, with contamination risk from street grime and fabric. Monitors picked up a heart that was racing hard. Cole scanned every exit and flinched when a cart squeaked. He grabbed at rails. Muscles coiled like wire. A physician stepped in sharp and loud and tried to take control. Cole arched off the pad, and the tension spiked across the bay. RN Grace Walker moved to the apex of his vision and slowed the tempo. She held a safe 3-meter distance and used simple words. Name. Breath. Next step. She centered his gaze at her sternum, so he did not feel hunted by eye contact. Then she gave him the anchor he needed with the phrase Raven Echo 50, a unit motto for reassurance only. Not a live code. Not any classified signal. Security stayed at the threshold with hands visible and no weapons drawn. Staff held positions and waited for clear tasks. Cole's shoulders dropped and his fists loosened as he shifted into conditional compliance aimed at Grace. The words hung in the air with a weight that felt shared and heavy, something the others could feel but could not name. And the room moved from chaos toward order. Grace takes practical lead while the attending sets medical authority. She walks the team through airway, breathing, and circulation with steady cues. Then she mirrors the march sequence. So massive, hemorrhage control and chest assessment happen before secondary checks for circulation and hypothermia or head injury. Security stays at the doorway with hands visible and no weapons drawn. She asks for soft restraints to keep everyone safe, then confirms light sedation per physician order. Ketamine at 0.5 to 1 mg per kilogram IV is prepared, or midazolam if indicated, with continuous monitoring on. IV access is placed. Labs are drawn, and vitals are called out in a calm cadence. The room listens and moves together. Grace irrigates the shoulder wound in long passes until the fluid runs clear. Hemostatic gauze is ready if brisk bleeding returns and a firm pressure dressing is set. She proposes an initial field closure to reduce bleeding and contamination, while the resident performs the definitive suturing under Dr. Patrick Sloan's oversight. EMTALA guides every choice, so stabilization comes before any discussion of transfer. Handoffs are concise and civilian plain, using name, problem, action, and next step. Security remains present but not intrusive. Roles are clean and visible. Skill replaces panic, and the bay settles into a disciplined rhythm that follows Grace's clear flow while staying inside hospital policy and scope. Grace lifts blunt scissors and trims the blood-soaked combat shirt away from the ruined sleeve. Light catches the base of her hairline, where a thin, pale groove sits like an old pressure mark from a headset. Cole sees it, and his stare hardens from fear into focus. His breath changes from ragged bursts to short, controlled pulls. Gunshots pop in the distance and roll across the parking lot like far thunder. Hospital security keys, a calm update to the desk, and adjusts the entry post without stepping into care space. The team holds steady, while Grace stays on task with gloved hands and clean movements. She checks the field, keeps pads dry, and does not rush. Cole breathes the words Raven Echo 50, and it lands between them like a shared memory. Grace answers with a nod that frames the phrase as a grounding motto for a panicked soldier. Not a live radio code, not a frequency, not a tactical signal. No locations are said and no names are offered. The meaning stays human and present tense, so care can move forward. An older veteran in triage hears the unit name and lowers his head as if he has just recognized a ghost. He speaks under his breath that she knows a challenge many thought erased from open records, then falls quiet. Grace gives nothing back beyond steady work. She pauses for half a second, draws one slow breath, and resumes irrigation and initial closure with calm precision. Saline runs clear along the shoulder and fresh dressings settle under firm hands. Monitors find a smoother rhythm and voices drop to the soft level of a library. The air feels heavier and safer at the same time. The room folds into a hush as everyone senses a history larger than the hospital and understands that respect is now part of the protocol, even without knowing why. The double doors open and a small team of military police steps in with a junior base investigator at their shoulder. They ask to move Sergeant Cole Bennett under command pressure while he is still pale and sweating on the gurney. Hospital security holds the line at the threshold with hands visible and no weapons drawn. Cole grimaces and grips the rails as a wave of pain folds him forward. Grace Walker steps between the gurney and the path out. She explains in plain language that EMTALA requires stabilization and that an unstable patient cannot be transferred without meeting criteria and appropriate medical transport. She states that the hospital incident command holds on-scene medical lead inside this room and that care will proceed according to policy. She turns them toward coordination with CID and JAG, so decisions move through the right channels. The junior investigator bristles and mentions discipline and orders while looking past her. Grace reminds him that UCMJ applies to service members and that any civilian interference in care would be handled by local police as obstruction. She keeps her voice even and repeats the anchor line that centers the room. The patient is the mission. Cole whispers, "Do not move me," and squeezes his eyes shut as another cramp of pain rides through him. The MP team trades, looks, and backs a half step. Then one sergeant makes a call up the chain. Seconds pass with only monitor tones and steady breathing to mark the time. The answer comes back, and they nod, stepping away from the bed and toward the desk to start proper coordination. The room exhales in one quiet shift as roles clarify. The gurney stays put, and procedure replaces pressure, restoring respect for law, for care, and for the people doing both. Rotors beat the sky and then fade as an MH-60M from the 160th SOAR breaks off after a coordinated approach that was cleared with local police and hospital administration. The security element enters by the service corridor with weapons holstered and hands visible. Badges checked at the door, and radios low so the ER can hear its own alarms. They stop at the desk first, confirm arrival, and wait to be escorted toward care areas. The posture is alert but courteous, and every movement respects hospital space. Major Ethan Ward steps in behind the lead sergeant and lets the charge nurse guide his path. He asks who used the Raven Echo 50 challenge and listens when the answer points to RN Grace Walker. He addresses her with a steady "Mom," keeping his hands where staff can see them, and does not salute because she is a civilian indoors. A folder comes out with written orders and a brief summary already signed and time-stamped. The orders are clear and narrow, so no one has to guess. Take-on is limited to the security perimeter and exterior movement, with no interference in treatment areas. On-scene, medical lead remains with the ER under the Hospital Incident Command System. And EMTALA governs all transfer decisions until the patient is medically stable with appropriate transport. The language is precise, practical, and built to stand up in a review. Major Ward adds a short acknowledgement for the record that Grace previously served as a U.S.A. Army captain in the Medical Service Corps with attachment to JSOC tasking, and that the Raven 7 task unit included multiple 18D Special Forces medical sergeants under her medical direction. He gives no operational details and does not invite questions. The effect is immediate as physicians and nurses shift from doubt to trust, and security eases posture without losing awareness. The workflow tightens into clean handoffs and quiet momentum, aligned to clear authority and lawful process. No one raises a voice and nothing theatrical happens. The room simply changes shape around official recognition and proper boundaries. Grace is now free to lead inside policy and scope. The ER settles into the kind of order that lets care do its work. Access points settle under calm control, while the special operations element holds the outer perimeter with local police and hospital security. Weapons stay holstered, radios low, and the hallway clears without raising voices. Inside the bay, the charge nurse posts the current status at the desk and escorts only essential staff to the bed. The space feels smaller now, focused and steady. Grace lays out a simple flow that fits policy and keeps scope clean. Team 1 stays on Sergeant Cole Bennett, maintains monitoring, fluids, and pain control, and supports the resident who is finishing definitive suturing under Dr. Patrick Sloan's oversight. Team 2 stages for possible new arrivals with carts stocked, a bed open, and triage queues ready for handoff. Every role is visible, so no one has to guess. Her voice sets tempo through brief check-ins and closed-loop replies that confirm tasks, doses, and vitals. She reminds everyone that the patient is the mission, and that every staff member is mission-critical. And breathing in the room starts to match the same quiet rhythm. Security remains present but not intrusive, eyes out and hands visible, while the operators outside keep the corridor clear. Monitors smooth out, footsteps soften, and the ER works like a disciplined line where competence carries the day. No one needs drama to feel the shift. Order replaces panic, and trust replaces doubt. The work looks ordinary because it is done right. Policy holds, law holds, and care moves forward. The room has settled into a low hum when Cole asks what Raven Echo 50 really means and admits it pulled him back from the edge. Grace stays by the bed and keeps her voice even while she checks the line and the dressing. She tells him it is a promise born in hard ground to bring each other home, a way to find the center when everything tilts. She adds that it is not a code, not a signal, and not tied to radios or maps. He nods and follows her breathing until it slows into a steady climb and fall. She says it also remembers a day that looked like a win but carried a cost the system later forgot. And the words are simple enough to land without tearing anything open. Across triage, an older veteran hears only the phrase and goes still. Eyes wet. Chin down. Grace offers no confirmation and keeps one hand on the rail so Cole does not slip back into panic. The camera catches a worn unit patch in a wallet in a locker. Soft focus. Far from the lens. With no marks that name anything. It is there for a second and then gone. Like a memory that asks to be left alone. Cole repeats the phrase under his breath and his eyes clear. Finding focus in the way it holds both hope and weight. The ER's rhythm returns to normal as staff drift back to their tasks with quiet respect. And no one can say why the room feels different. Only that it does. Days later, the ER feels different in quiet ways. Dr. Patrick Sloan asks RN Grace Walker to lead the design of a rapid response triage unit that fits hospital policy. With physicians keeping medical authority while she shapes the tactical workflow under the hospital incident command system. She maps roles, flow, and handoffs, so the busiest hours move like a practice drill. The aim is simple and firm. Stabilize fast and keep patients safe. Training runs in short blocks, woven into real shifts. Grace shows tourniquet application with a cat on a practice limb and reviews chest seal basics when indicated by mechanism and assessment. She coaches calm communication and short miss-style handoffs that hit mechanism. Injuries, signs, and treatment in plain language. No combat theatrics appear, and no one handles weapons. Because this is a civilian ER with a job to do. A single rule takes hold, that skill outweighs title. Junior nurses find their voice at the bedside and call out changes early. Residents accept guidance without ego, and Dr. Sloan begins to credit the whole team when a case turns the right way. Grace ends each block with the same teaching line. Control the chaos inside before you try to control the chaos outside. And people carry it out of the room. By the end of the week, the motto, "The patient is the mission," lives in small choices that stack up. Carts stay ready. Handoffs grow crisp. And tempers cool faster. The shift breathes easier because trust is now part of the rhythm. Respect for quiet professionals has moved from a story to the culture. 2 weeks later, the sliding doors breathe open and the morning air feels clean. Sergeant Cole Bennett stands at the ER entrance in pressed clothes. Back straight. Eyes clear. He lifts his right hand in a precise salute that honors a former Army officer now in scrubs. A courtesy given without fanfare. He thanks RN Grace Walker for seeing him when he wanted to disappear. And the words land soft and true. Grace returns the respect with a warm nod, rather than a salute, because she is a civilian on duty. She keeps it brief and steady, telling him to live a life worthy of the ones not here, and to carry that weight as a guide, not a chain. He accepts the charge with a small smile and shoulders that look lighter. Hospital security watches from a respectful distance, and staff move quietly around them. The rhythm of a normal shift intact. Over the rooftops, an MH-60M from the 160th SOAR passes low on a coordinated route that was cleared in advance. The helicopter does not land, does not flash lights, and keeps to safe altitude and airspace. It gives a gentle nose dip and a shallow pedal turn. A courtesy pass that feels like a nod from the sky, then slides away without stirring paper on the curb. The scene holds its shape, grounded and calm, as if the city itself is listening. Grace places a hand to her chest and lets a breath settle. She whispers that she is still here and will still save lives. And the words feel like a promise to the work and to the night. Cole steps into the daylight with a clear path in front of him. The doors close and the ER moves on. Night settles over the quiet ER when Grace opens her locker and finds a folded note from Sergeant Cole Bennett. She places it beside a soft focus photo of the old Raven 7 team with no identifiers visible, the edges worn by time. The camera moves to the balcony under the soft lights where the city hums low and Grace stands in the calm, breathing steady as the cool air clears the day from her chest. On screen, ask viewers to comment, "I will live kindly," and subscribe with the line, We tell the stories that should not be forgotten.